A leftist has just been arrested for an assassination plot against a conservative commentator. And, listen, we get a lot of hate as conservatives, especially those of us in the public eye, a lot of nasty comments online. But there's a difference between a nasty comment, even a threatening comment, or a credible threat of violence against one and one's family. And this was a credible enough threat of violence that the Department of Justice has arrested George Isbell Jr., a 69-year-old man, for threatening to kill Benny Johnson and his entire family. This is the Department of Justice Attorney General Pam Bondi hosting a press conference announcing the charges against this despicable man. Take a look.
We've been living through a horrific cycle of political violence in this country. We've seen attacks against police officers, federal agents, including the deadly shooting in the ICE facility in Dallas. Night after night, Antifa wreaks havoc on our streets of our cities. In Minnesota, a gunman murdered a state lawmaker and her husband. It was horrific. An anti-Semitic lunatic tried to burn down Governor Shapiro's house while he was in it with his wife and young children. This week, authorities arrested a man outside a Catholic church in Washington, D.C., with hundreds of explosive devices. And on September 10th, our nation stopped in its tracks with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. We miss him dearly. Unfortunately, I'm here today to talk about similar threats that were made against Benny Johnson and his wife, Kate. Benny's a well-known media personality carrying a message very similar to Charlie's, grounded largely in faith and love of country. Just days after Charlie's assassination, Benny received a letter at his home where he and Kate are raising their beautiful, beautiful young family. The author of this letter made it very clear that he hated Benny because of his views, and he wanted Benny dead. This was a coward hiding behind a keyboard who thought he could get away with this. That's why we're standing up here today. You are not going to get away with threatening people in this way. And I'm proud to announce that we have arrested the author of this letter. George Isbell Jr. was taken into custody this morning, and we are charging him federally with mailing threatening communications. It is a crime, and if convicted, he is going to prison.
Benny Johnson, host of the Benny Johnson Show. He's a prominent conservative commentator. He needs no introduction. Joins us on the Liz Wheeler Show today. Benny, thanks for joining us.
Hi, thank you, Liz. It's my honor.
All right, Benny, this is so horrifying. I mean, my heart goes out to you just as someone who's also raising young children, to have your home, which is, supposed to be your safe space, if you will, to have that threatened by someone who is actually a credible threat, not just a nasty keyboard warrior. Walk us through exactly what happened here. I mean, you probably get a lot of fan mail, a lot of hate mail. How did you know this was different?
Yeah, Liz, you are a mother. I know a proud mother and a wife, and I am a proud father of 4 little children and a husband. And parenting is hard enough, right? It is like the hardest thing that you can do is to try and there's no instruction manual. It's amazingly difficult to do, and it takes all of your effort. And so to the parents out there, this is a movement about ensuring that you can raise your kids in safety and security, whether it's from terroristic threatening of left-wing violence, which happened to me specifically in name when this individual, George Isbell Jr., said that he would blow my head off in an open field, just like Charlie Kirk, and watch my blood splatter on the concrete, or whether it's from terroristic threatening of homicidal criminals who get let out of jail time and time again and scare you and your children out of the parks and off the streets. What America First is a movement of pro-family. And why is that important? Because actually, Liz, as you know, the things that make you happy in life are having a relationship with God, falling in love, getting married, having children. These are the things that bring purpose and true joy to your life. It's also something that is predominantly found only on the right. The right are the family of parents, and all the data shows this. The vast majority of parents in this country vote Republican. In fact, the vast majority of single people actually are amongst the Democrat Party. This is why when JD Vance calls them childless cat ladies. He's right. The data actually proves that. And so what point am I trying to make here?
I was never offended by that. I was like, I mean, he's not wrong.
He's not wrong. And you've seen the way that they behave. And this is the way that they behave. The point I'm trying to make here is, how can you possibly justify sending a terrorist letter wanting to orphan my children, wanting to widow my wife, wanting to do whatever I assume horrible things have been sent to you? Anybody who even, pokes their head up in some type of prominence in the Charlie Kirk, Donald Trump ecosystem gets a deluge of death threats. And the reason why it happens is because these people are miserable. They are godless. They often don't have families. They have no idea the effect that this has. And so I don't want it to be something that is normalized. And so, Liz, I said, damn it, we are going to actually do something about this one. And we've been getting death threats for a long time. I think a lot of people, in this industry get them. But what I said was, because this was mailed to our home, perhaps there's something here. We called the police. The police referred it to the FBI. The FBI found a DNA match. They worked with the U.S. Postal Service in order to figure out where it was mailed from, who mailed it. And then when the FBI raided this individual's home, he immediately confessed, yeah, I'm the guy who did this. Of course, this is a crime. And I'm not here to say I'm the only one that's ever received a death threat. That's obviously untrue. What I'm here to say is that, I am very proud of working with the Trump administration in order to make sure that perhaps we can stop it together.
Yeah.
By making an example of this individual, we can stop this, because we are a movement of families, and you can't have a pro-family movement if parents are being terroristically threatened. The final thing I'll say here, Liz, is this. It's not going to work. The number one, I'm a Christian, and the most prominent phrase in the Bible is do not be afraid. Fear not. It's found hundreds of times in any translation of the Bible. And God commands us to live courageously. God gives us a spirit of courage. God is the author of life and death, and he has a purpose for all of our lives. And it is not to cower in fear. And so it's going to backfire. It's not going to work. And I'm very, very proud to be part of a movement that stands courageously against these terroristic threats and saying, we will not be afraid.
Yeah. And I really appreciate you saying that too, because it is not, it's an open secret that anybody that works in the conservative movement experiences this on a daily basis. I mean, you and I have both been dealing with this for the last decade. No secret, of course. We don't often talk about it because what's the point of talking about it? You don't want to bring attention to it in a sense. But it does take sometimes one person to take a leadership role to say, actually, we have recourse here. It's not just, personal self-defense, arming ourselves or securing our house or whatever it might be, making sure that our family's protected. Sometimes it takes a leader to make a policy change, to go to law enforcement and say, hey, I'm going to set up a system with law enforcement to show people who might consider sending these threats that if you do this, law enforcement now knows how to track you down. They're going to track you down, and you're going to spend a significant amount of time in prison. That will serve as a deterrent to people considering doing this. I do want to ask you, though, this DNA match that you mentioned on this letter, that fascinates me. Does this individual have a prior criminal record? How did they have a DNA match?
Yeah, so I don't really want to comment on that. It's his history is on the internet and has been cataloged by quite a few sleuths. Not a good hombre, I guess you could just say. But it's an ongoing case, so I'm just going to stick to the facts of the case right now and let this be adjudicated in court. Again, you can see the filings; they're all public, and you can go through and search his records and
look to see what his DNA. Well, the
yes,
fact that he had
see that
DNA.
this is totally credible. To see that this is totally credible,
Right?
And that somebody could have done something really terrible to my family. And again, Liz, this is about simply saying, we got to draw the line somewhere. So the line shouldn't be he's dead, right? The line shouldn't be like he's dead in a field. The line should be that there were at the very least mitigation efforts taken in order to stop crimes. And as you said in your open, incitement, violence, terroristic threatening to kill and murder and maim someone is not covered under the First Amendment.
Right.
You cannot do that. Yeah, that is terrorism to families. And so I'm sick of families, the good-hearted, good Christian families of our movement being terrorized by these godless demons. And so we did something about it.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And on this family thing, I spoke to the Claire Booth Lewis Center for Conservative Women over the weekend. Their women's summit, their college women's summit. So it's a bunch of 18 to 22-year-old young women conservative who are looking to be part of politics, but also embracing femininity and their role in the family. And we talked about how marriage and for them motherhood is not just a job. It's not just what they want to do. That the family is this earthly representation of the Trinity. It's God's way of showing us the mystery of the Trinity, that God wants us to live in heaven with him in full communion, and that the eternal exchange of love between the Father and the Son, that's the Holy Spirit, and that's mirrored in the family when a husband and wife become one flesh and their exchange of love begets new life. This is another piece of evidence that what we're facing here is not just bickering between the left and the right. It is a spiritual battle, good versus evil.
Yes.
And in a sense, of course, the family's under attack because of what it represents. So, my question to you, you mentioned godlessness. You mentioned that these people are at least captured by demons. How does this happen? Is there a pipeline that you see that's creating these young men or creating ideological capture of these young men? And policy wise, what needs to be done to stop it?
Yeah, you can go back into the first chapter of the Bible to see exactly where this all comes from, right? So, what is the nature of God? To create and to make something beautiful. It is very good. It says in the first chapter of Genesis about God's creation. God said it was very good, right? It's like this was awesome, creating the world and creating man. If you look to the definition of Satan, the definition of what is Satan? What is the mark of the beast? Well, that's to steal, kill, and destroy. It is the absolute opposite, an inverse of God. It is the polar negative of God. And so if you're looking at to find Satan in this world, look to who is wanting to kill and wanting to steal, like stealing Charlie Kirk from his children and his wife, and to destroy, right? And that's what they want to do. The nature of God is to create, and he gives in man, in the creation of man and woman, he gives the mark created in God's image. That is the mark of value, something that he didn't give to the animals. He gave mankind a mark of eternal value, celestial value. And if you don't agree, if you defy God, then the first thing you're going to do is defy God's first law to man. The first thing that he says to his creation, Liz, is go multiply, be fruitful. That's the first command of God to man. And it wasn't the Ten Commandments. It wasn't in the New Testament. It was go multiply and be fruitful. And if you defy God, if you deny God, then you'll want to do the opposite of that. You won't see value in human life, just like all the every Bolshevik and every Soviet revolution, every socialist revolution has always seen human life as something that is annoying, something that is to be done away with if it becomes inconvenient. Obviously, the modern abortion movement is the exact same thing. And so you can see the thesis of what is human life. Is human life a precious creation of God that has value because we are created in God's image? Or is it an inconvenience? Like, for instance, Charlie was an inconvenience, clearly, to the left. And Charlie's life, and so was President Trump. President Trump was a massive inconvenience to the left. Ironically, President Trump delivering what the left has been screaming about for the last couple of years, delivering peace in the Middle East and liberating Gaza, so to speak, today. But nonetheless, I mean, the point is that Trump was an inconvenience to their power. And so they wanted to kill Trump too. They put a bullet through Trump's head. They put a bullet in Charlie. And they do it to every single one of us if they can, because they don't believe in God. That is why I call it godless. You cannot want to kill your political opponents if you believe in God. And they deny God's command to man, which is to be fruitful and multiply. And so they hate that. Ultimately, they hate themselves. They're denying their creator.
They do. And I think, it's funny, whenever we talk about God on the show, there's like a portion of people who are like, listen, we need to talk more about God and culture and politics. And there are a portion of people that are like, don't get preachy. And I feel like we've sort of broken through that wall after Charlie's murder, because when you come face to face with this kind of evil, you realize that if evil exists, then good must also exist. And you look, you ask yourself that question, well, what is good? If evil exists and good exists, what is good? And if you're a truth seeker, then you find God in that. And I think the godlessness point is extremely key to me from a strategic standpoint too, because when you look at who's behind some of these radical leftist groups, whether it's Antifa, whether it's armed queers, whether it's the Socialist Rifle Association, whether it's the American almost billionaire Roy Singham, who hides out in communist China because he's a communist. He's funding, the anti-ICE violence in Los Angeles that we saw, those riots. He's funding the Students for Justice in Palestine, the pro-Hamas riots that we saw on college campuses.
Yeah.
His money goes through these leftist groups towards these very violent.
Where are they, Liz?
Transgender militia.
Not to interrupt you, but news of the day. Where the hell are they? Their balls fall off? Do their kifas fall off? Where are they today? President Trump just delivered the thing they've been taking over college campuses for, marching through the streets, burning cities down. Trump just delivered it to them. He liberated the Palestinians. He brought peace in the Middle East. Isn't this a free Palestine movement? Isn't this what they've always wanted? Where the hell are these people exactly? They're total frauds, Liz. Like, they should be marching
100%.
the street. They should be marching the street today with giant Donald Trump placards saying, my president, my president.
In Israel that said, God bless the peacemaker, a big portrait of Donald Trump here. You're exactly right.
Trump's a really bad Hitler. He's so bad. He should not do that for Halloween. He's such a bad Hitler. Yeah.
I mean, it is one of those moments when the true colors of the left are on full display here, because they should be grateful. They should be crying if they really believe it was a genocide in Gaza and Trump saved the Palestinians from that. This is what they've been fighting for. But of course, it's all a thin mask for what, Benny? It's a thin mask over their communist ideology, which is not me inferring their ideology. It's their words admitting that they are motivated by communism. And what is the Catholic Church? And this is true, by the way. It doesn't matter if you're Catholic or whether you're non-denominational Christian or Protestant or evangelical or whatever. The Catholic Church, for centuries now, has defined communism as emanating from hell, from the satanic, that this is not just a stupid, bad, dangerous, corrupt, power-hungry ideology. This is an ideology of the devil. It is fundamentally opposed to God. And when you put all of that together, it almost makes the chaos in our culture, this violence, this assassination culture, it almost makes it make sense.
Yeah, well, if you read the Communist Manifesto, the first thing that you got to take down that Marx puts, by the way, this is in the prologue. This is not even getting into the Communist Manifesto. You got to say, so the first thing that you got to do, you got to take down the capitalist entities. All right, got it. That's what most people focus on. You got to seize the means of production. Okay. They missed the next sentence, Liz, which says the family and the church. The next things you must attack are the funny how that gets left out, right? Of Hollywood or in like modern communism. Why don't we ever hold them to account? So you want to destroy the church. That's what Marx writes. That's the next thing that needs to go. The next thing after that is the family unit. So make them own it. Like, shove it down their throats. Yeah. So which churches are you going to destroy? Which temples are you going to destroy? It says you're going to get rid of all churches. Oh, okay. Try explaining that to Muslims or Jews in their synagogue. Or Christians, inside of their cathedrals. So make that case, please. Like, make them live out that value, because it's obviously what they want. It's what their little hedonistic, blasphemous Bible says to do. Karl Marx tells them to do this. So, like, why don't we ever call them on that? You're right. It is the game plan.
Think about
it says so right there.
Rules for Radicals. Who did he dedicate that book to? He dedicated that book to the devil. That's not a coincidence. That's not something said tongue-in-cheek, even though the left likes to deny that that's the case. It's not. So all this being said, I know it's an active investigation into the terroristic threat that was sent to you. Is there any ties to these groups, to Antifa, to these leftist organizations? Is this a Lone Ranger threat, or have you been able to trace a connection?
From what I've heard, this guy has a major history in pornography business. And has, a very dodgy past. Yeah, that's what I've heard. And we could spiral off into a whole new conversation about the evils of porn and how it is probably one of the arch evils of the modern society is the dehumanization, human trafficking, sex trafficking, that pornography mainstreams into the minds of generally young men.
Yes.
And how that again ties into, we are not created in God's image, a hedonistic and totally amoral view of who human beings are. I'm not sure we have enough time to get into that in the show, but that's obviously a massive problem. I see Pornhub being banned in like 17 states. I'm like, yes,
I know.
Yes. Thank you.
those
And
who
like a
make the
couple
argument
European.
that the First Amendment protects it, I'm like, give me a break. You think the founding fathers wanted to protect furry porn, the creation, the dissemination, and the profit from that? I don't think so. Listen,
Yeah.
5 years ago, if you had said what you're saying right now, even Republicans would have been like, Benny, come on, this is not what we're going to talk about here. We don't want to talk about the social issues. And politicians on both sides of the aisle don't want to talk about this for probably pretty obvious reasons. However, I think that we are going to see a cultural shift in the way that pornography is viewed because, again, of the very obvious correlation between, I mean, think about the young man, the alleged assassin of Charlie Kirk, Tyler Robinson, and his transgender lover. What were they associated with? Furry pornography. And if you don't know what furry pornography is, I plead with you, do not Google it. Do not Google it. It is the most demented, the most disgusting, it is just demonic. It's not just, when I say just, it's not just vanilla Playboy from the 1950s, which I still don't condone, but at least properly ordered sex, but outside of the context where it's properly ordered. That's not what furry pornography is. And there's a correlation between this deviant sexual behavior and the violence that we're seeing committed against the right.
Yeah, I just couldn't agree with you more. Please don't Google it.
Please don't Google it. All right, Benny, I know you have to go. I appreciate you being on the show. I know this is hard to talk about.
Yeah.
Please give your best to, or give my best to your wife. I'm praying for you guys. And I really appreciate you taking a leadership role on, holding accountable the left when they try to harm our families. I thank you for doing that.
Yeah, thank you, Liz. We're going to be at Charlie Kirk's Freedom Memorial service at the White House tomorrow. We're going to be honoring Charlie to give us an opportunity to also talk about this major, you have to call it out for what it is. Everybody attacked me during the press conference because I kept saying this is left-wing violence.
Yeah.
But you have to actually call out evil. And most importantly, as Christians, you cannot make peace with evil. You cannot unite with people who want to kill you. It's time for us to have this conversation in the country. Thank you, Liz, for having it.
Yeah. Amen to that. God bless, Benny. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Liz.